This episode is brought to you by Zencastr. Zencastr is the #1 tool for all podcasters. You can record high-fidelity audio between remote locations and get studio-quality sound. Go to Zencastr.com and use coupon code THATENTERTAINS for 20% off for 3 months or 20% off an annual plan.
Everything is Awesome is part of Courts and Parts, a podcast network featuring pop culture, TV, movie, and geek podcasts. Check out some of our other shows, like TV Ate My Brain, Let's Chat with Revelant Friends, and Podstalgic at courtsandparts.com.
Awesome. Just tell people they're awesome and mean it.
Awesome.
Awesome. Awesome.
Did you have an awesome time? Did you drink awesome shooters and listen to awesome music and then just sit around and soak up each other's awesomeness?
Awesome. 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 That was awesome. You guys are awesome. No, you're awesome. No, you are awesome.
Sir, you are awesome. Seriously.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Welcome to this week's edition of Everything is Awesome. I am your host, Kevin. This is the show where we sit down and talk to awesome people about awesome things. And as we are leaving the podcast festival celebration shows, we're still kind of in the moment of the Philadelphia Podcast Festival because as of now, on June 29th, the festival is still happening. That's right. The festival, there's a show or two tonight, but things really jump into gear for the last weekend tomorrow at Tattooed Moms. With Doom Thugs, The Ghouls Next Door, with Gabe and Kat. It's going to be a good weekend of shows starting tomorrow. I think there's some shows at the Troc all weekend long as well. And, of course, Everything is Awesome is kicking off the last day of the festival at Tattooed Moms, 1 p.m., and it's going to be so much fun. Come down to South Street. You get to play some games, Food Fright. It's going to be a series of 4 food challenges, and you can win cash. You can win a gift card from Tattooed Moms for drinks, apps, food, whatever. You can also win an Escape the Room gift card from Mind Escape, Philadelphia on South Street's Escape the Room adventure, you know? We're going to have some awesome prizes to give away. We also have some awesome guests to sit down and talk to, like Jacqueline Holloway, who is a fight choreographer and stunt worker. It's going to be, I'm so interested in talking to her, especially since I have a small background in wrestling and kind of talking the differences between wrestling and you know, fighting on TV, film, and stage and whatnot. And then we have Kyle Harris, Philadelphia's own Kyle Harris, who is going to be doing some stand-up for us, and he'll sit down and chat comedy with us. And then we'll kind of pass the baton over to Full Belly Laughs, one of my favorite performers in the city. So make sure you come out at least for that and get there early so that you can watch our show. It's just a good day of podcasting. Go to phillypodfest.com/schedule, and it's just gonna be a fun time. I hope to see you on July 1st at 1 p.m. It will mean the world to me. Come say hi. Make sure you say hi to me. I want to talk to you. I want to meet the fans. So come on out. It's gonna be a fun time. I guarantee it. But as I said, we're kind of moving our way out of the Philadelphia Podcast Fest 2018 celebration mode, and a couple episodes ago, we aired our 10 Years of Marvel panel from the Great Philadelphia Comic-Con in April of 2018 here. And we were able to do it at Wizard World 2018 as well in Philadelphia. And that was amazing. You know, Wizard World invited us to come do the panel, and it was midday Friday afternoon, like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 3:30, something like that. And we just had a huge turnout. We walked to the room and there's like 50 to 75 people in the room, and I'm like, I look in and the screen still shows the panel that was before us. I'm like, I don't think this is for us, man. And Mike, who was a part of the panel, he went in and checked with them, and he said, hey, what are you guys here for? And someone said, we're here for the Marvel panel. And I was like, oh my God, we gotta like commit now. Like, we have to deliver. And I think we did. I think we delivered on this panel. I had wonderful panelists who donated their time. Friend of the show, friend of the Philadelphia podcast scene, Ariel Johnson, who is the owner and operator of Amalgam Comics and Coffee House in Philadelphia. She is such a kind woman who donates her space to the creative arts, and a lot of times that's podcasting. You know, she makes her venue available anytime that I request it. She makes it available to the Philadelphia Podcast Festival. There were some shows there last weekend. So I just adore that she's so committed to promoting the geekdom and the nerdom and just a safe space for people to celebrate that stuff. And part of that's podcasting for me. So I really appreciate that she does that. So she was a panelist, and we had Kate Sheridan, who is a Philadelphia artist and comic book writer and creator, as part of the panel as well. So we had a great panel, a different panel. Me and Mike were repeats, but that's fine. And we were able. The important thing, we were able to spoil Infinity War. It had been 2 or 3 weeks since Infinity War had come out, versus 2 days at the last panel. So we were able to dive deep into Infinity War, and the audience was really engaging with us. And I love that we had a write-up in Temple of Geek. I'll have the link to the article in the show notes, but this wonderful writer, Maggie, wrote an article about Wizard World 2018 coverage. She did press coverage for it, and she wrote just a little tiny blurb about Everything is Awesome. Didn't mention me by name, but that's okay. That's okay. It's more important that she mentioned Everything is Awesome and linked us. More importantly, linked to us. It was just so awesome. This was an amazing opportunity that has opened my eyes to the world of doing things at conventions, and we're going to hopefully be at the Keystone Comic-Con. I think we're going to be at Thy Geekdom Comic-Con at the Greater Oaks Expo Center in November. So we have a couple more con shows coming up, and I'm really excited for it. And we're doing more. We're submitting more ideas beyond our 10 years of Marvel. The 10 years of Marvel is going to, that clock is ticking. And at the end of the year, we can't do it anymore. So I'm really stoked for this new form of art that I get to create in panels and whatnot. And I'm hoping that I can slowly kind of move that into moderating guest panels where, maybe I'll sit down and talk to Stephen and Mel at Wizard World one year and in front of all you guys, and just be able to be the conduit for you guys is kind of where I hope to see my geek career take me. And it all starts with the Greater Philadelphia Comic-Con and Wizard World. They both said yes to a nobody, really, at the end of the day. Some have even called me a third-rate Kevin Smith, and they said yes to this third-rate Kevin Smith, which makes me a first-rate Kev Gallagher. It makes me a first-rate Kev me. So I am so happy to present you this panel that took place on May 18th at Wizard World Philadelphia. I'm not going to come back on the other end. I'm going to let the panel take us to the end. So thank you so much for all the support you throw our way. I'm not going to wax poetic about all the different ways you can support us. Real quick, thatentertains.com is where all of our content is stored, but you can go to patreon.com/thatentertains to subscribe to us for as little as $1 a month and get early access and exclusive content. 5-star rating and reviews on iTunes helps us get in front of more ears so that more people are listening to us. And word-of-mouth recommendations. Guys, from the bottom of my heart, this has been, despite all the bullshit I had to go through the beginning of this year and the end of last year, with ex-podcast friends of mine, I was in a dark place earlier this year, and I almost gave up on live podcasting. I almost said to myself, I'm just done, and that would have probably led to me not podcasting anymore, which is insane to me because this medium means so much to me. When I couldn't wrestle anymore, podcasting was there, whether as a fan or a creator. And the fact that I almost threw in the towel the beginning of this year to live podcasting, which would have ultimately not led me to doing these panels and not podcasting at all, is insane. So thank you so much for all the support and all the love that we, just kind of share with one another in Philadelphia and in Pod and Family and all the fun places that we talk about podcasts. Thank you for coming to these panels and supporting these dopey dreams of mine. It means the world. There's nothing, no other way to phrase it. It truly means the world to me. because I'm just a, fat kid from Philadelphia, and I'm working on the fat part with Weight Watchers. But all right, I digress. Thank you to my panelists. Thank you to you guys, and thank you to Wizard World. We are part of the Court Temp Arts Podcast Network right here on awesomepodcast.com. And here is the panel from the 2018 Wizard World, where we sit down with Ariel Johnson, Kate Sheridan, and Mike D'Angelo to talk about 10 years of Marvel, the MCU. Oh my God. Here it is right on awesomepodcast.com. We've been awesome.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming out to the panel. We are going to be discussing 10 years of the MCU. I am Kevin Gallagher, the host of the Everything is Awesome podcast, and I'm just a big old fanboy, really, at the end of the day. So I enlisted some people that have some more expertise in the subject matter than I do. So let's kick it off and have them introduce themselves and give some plugs, starting on my left with Ariel.
Hello, my name is Ariel Johnson. I'm the owner and operator and head nerd in charge at Amalgam Comics and Coffee House, located right here in Philadelphia. And I am very happy to be here today.
I'm Kate Sheridan. I make indie comics, fantasy and D&D stuff, mostly just self-published, but I enjoy it. I play a lot of D&D too, and Marvel is what got me into comics, so I'm really excited to be here.
Hi everyone, I'm Mike D'Angelo. I'm Kev's freaking co-host for all his Everything is Awesome live events. I am the writer of Tell Us and the creator of Quantum Quest. I'm at booth 1514 upstairs. My books are kind of like medieval superheroes. It's like Game of Thrones had a baby with Marvel. So
and let's just, instead of talking Marvel in general first, one thing we didn't get to talk about last time we did this panel was Infinity War. We did a pre-panel poll. Everyone's cool with us talking Infinity War, right? Everyone's seen it? All right. I thought someone was about to say they didn't see it. I was gonna have a heart attack. All right, so let's kick it off. What do y'all think of Infinity War? Yeah? Did anyone not like it? Whoa, okay, wow. Yeah.
It's draining, right? It's emotionally draining.
It's a very long and exhausting movie.
We saw it twice. We had tickets all 3 days opening weekend, and my wife, she was like, I can't do it a third time. I can't do it all again.
What do you think?
You can go.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I saw it twice. So the first time I did not like it. I walked out mad. I was mad. I was like, what did I just like? Because we know we're going to lose people, and then, in my nerd mind, I had already decided who that was going to be, and so nothing was what I thought, and so I was just kind of just pissy about it. And so, but then I went and saw it a second time, and just, again, so the shock of what happens, has kind of dissipated because I know what's going to happen, and just watched it as a movie, and it was a solid movie. So that's not to say it did not go the direction that I wanted it to go and thought it was going to go, but it was well done. And, in watching it again, I see all of the hints to know kind of what's going to come after, or just kind of an inkling of what's going to come after.
What were you expecting?
Well, so I don't know exactly when people's contracts are up. They don't give me that information. But, we know, Chris Evans is on his way out. We know Robert Downey Jr. is on his way out. So I was kind of thinking it was like set up to kind of clear the board for the next wave. I was like, well, if Steve goes, Sam is there. And for me, like, the comics are always first. So while I love the MCU movies, that is like alternate universe to me, because the comics are kind of what I go by. So I'm thinking, like, if you're setting this up for the next wave, and if you're using the comics for that, there are places to go. So again, Steve makes way for Sam. Tony makes way for Riri. Even if you want to say like Thor makes room for Jane Foster, though I know people don't really like her in the movie. I've only seen the first Thor movie and Ragnarok. I didn't see the second. I didn't see the second one because I didn't want to see it. I was like, no, the Thor movies aren't grabbing me. But my friend was like, no, you have to see Ragnarok, and I was actually very pleased with that. But I mean, arguably, even if they wanted to go another route, if they got rid of Thor, they could go Valkyrie because they introduced her, and that might even be, you know, something because people did respond positively to her character. So, and even with Peter, you know, we know Miles exists because we've met his uncle in Homecoming. So I was mad about Peter, as I think we all were, because I think Tom Holland is doing an excellent job, and he is by far the superior Spider-Man. So I was, you know, we're in a universe where we know Miles exists, so we know that may happen, but I wasn't, I just wasn't expecting it, not in this movie, because it's just too soon. Too soon.
There's also that Homecoming 2 movie coming out.
Right, and so that somebody else was like, that doesn't even make any sense because they have to start promoting Homecoming 2, but we all just saw, you know,
the dust
and the Infinity Fade.
That movie, they were talking about, the Homecoming 2 is going to open minutes after before, are we going to have a dustpan and a broom?
And that's my issue with Infinity War, is that there's not a death to me that matters. And you can argue that the deaths matter to the characters, but as an audience member, like, I need to feel the character's emotion, and I don't feel it when I know Black Panther is going to have 17 more movies, and Spider-Man is going to have at least one more movie, or, you know, so it was really hard to watch that film and the ending and buy the fact that I should be sad.
Right.
Despite Tom Holland's performance, because that was
heartbreaking.
Yeah, he made me tear a little bit because of that performance. Like, that was the only thing that was good about all these deaths we had, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think if they would have maybe gone with the people that we know are exiting, it would have felt a little bit more. Just like with Logan, you feel that because you know Hugh Jackman is done. So that was like an exit, and so it didn't. The people that are gone, it's just like, what? And, you know, coming off of that Black Panther high, and I was like, how you gonna give us Wakanda and then take it right back? I was
having like a rough couple of months here. Like, just give him a break.
Yeah.
Thor's having a rough couple of months. Like, it's not fair.
Mike, let's hear some of your opinions. You haven't spoken much about Infinity.
I mean, I really dug it. I would have seen it the third time, but we had the panel at Greater Oaks that day, so I needed a little bit of time. So I was like, we can let this go. I'll save my money for Deadpool. But yeah, I mean, it's a tough movie to slog through on the back end, because, I mean, like you said, you know that the characters, they're not gone.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few that probably came in the beginning before the snap. That
yes.
They're gone for good, I would imagine. You're not going to see Loki, you're not going to see Heimdall. You might see Gamora based on comments from the Russo brothers. So I don't know, and I wouldn't imagine that they want to let go of Gamora in a movie that's not Guardians, something like that. But no, I mean, for the most part, I really dug it. I thought it was the kind of movie that you do build forward into for 10 years. That was, I mean, they do the event comics all the time, and I thought that this is more than we would ever see in our lifetime. And
taking my knowledge, my adult knowledge, out of the fact that I know there's going to be sequels to these characters that dusted away, it is like the empire of Marvel movies. It's The Empire Strikes Back. It is a very sad ending, which to me is like the greatest movie. Like when it ends in a sad note, like it feels, because nothing is always a happy ending in real life. So to have that kind of ending, it feels kind of good to see that, especially when now we know. And next year, we're going to see, whatever we see, the resolution to this. And what do you think? What do you guys think is going to happen in the next one?
I don't know. I think Tony is the key, right? Yeah. Just based on when they're on the spaceship and Doctor Strange says, if it comes between you and this boy and the stone, I'm going to let you two die. And then at the point where he could have let that happen, he stops Thanos and turns over the stone and then says, we're in the end game. So whatever the path is to winning, they're on it. And like Doctor Strange kind of opened that door. So I don't know, but I do feel like Tony is the key. And I think because of that, Tony is definitely done next movie. That is
and
that's the only thing I can really, that's my only guess.
And I think that makes a lot of sense. Tony and Robert Downey Jr. is the one that kicked this whole thing off just over 10 years ago. So it feels really appropriate. As much as I kind of wanted to see him die in this one, which sounds really weird to say, but it makes a lot more sense for him to go in the next one because it started with him, it should end with him. Okay.
Yeah, I think like Tony's obviously going to have a big part of it, but I think Thor's a big part of it too, because I think he's the only one of them left that probably has like the power to wield the Infinity Stones, because the Gauntlet's basically destroyed, and Thor's Asgardian, and you know, we saw just in Infinity War, he can withstand like the actual power of a sun. So he's probably like the best candidate for that, but something's probably I highly doubt they're gonna bring back Loki again, unless they get Taika Waititi on Thor 4 or whatever, which, you know, I would love.
Mike?
See, I know too much. I look at all the set pictures and everything like that, so like I have to have like a tempered response here. I feel like we're gonna see a lot of. I feel like if you're going to tell a story where Thanos is trying to balance the world and show the universe at harmony, we have to see either later on down the line whether or not he succeeded or whether his experiment was a massive failure. So I don't think that we're going to have something that starts right away. I mean, Tony's not going to get back to Earth for a long time.
Yeah, and he's stuck with Nebula.
And it's not like they do have the Benatar. They do have the Guardian's new ship. So it wasn't like the Necro ship or the Necrocraft or whatever that she crashed. The Benatar should still be in, you know, a solid.
I forgot about that. Good point.
But in my mind, what they're doing is they have to piece together life without these characters and see, you know, how does life go on. And to your point, I think we're going to see the Infinity Gauntlet again. It might not be the same gauntlet based on the fact that we saw the mold on you know, the dwarf planet and everything. So I think they're probably going to make a new Infinity Gauntlet because the old one's fried. And I don't know if I buy 100% that Thor would be the only one to wear.
I like that theory, though.
I totally see Hulk.
Yeah, the Thor argument holds up. That's the first time I've heard something like that.
And Hulk doesn't deserve to wield it.
Probably.
But
Banner might.
Banner's like, oh, he's so fragile though.
Yeah, that's true.
Let Okoye wield it. Yeah, because she was giving that mighty side eye the whole movie. I was like, yes. She's like, what's she doing up there this whole time? I was just like, perfect. So.
Did you have something to say?
I just especially after the first couple of Avengers movies, like, you know, Thor would just get sent off for like a half hour and do absolutely nothing of import for like the rest of the movie. So I love the idea that he had like a much bigger role and like more of a character in Infinity War, and I hope that he does get something to do in the second one too.
And I want to see more Thor and Rocket. Like, that was such a great partnership, right? Like, if they're not going to make any more Thor movies, I want Chris Hemsworth to go to the Guardians movies, because that's just like a great team up, right, guys?
Thor and Valkyrie too. They just get right in.
Yeah, it's amazing what Thor Ragnarok did for that character. Because I enjoyed the first Thor movie. Recently watching The Dark World, again, you know, it's a movie. It's there. I thought I liked it more than I did, but you know, Incredible Hulk is actually a better movie. I'll say it. But Thor 3 is just what they did with that character is it makes him way more interesting and probably my favorite character out of the MCU right now. Let's go. Who do you like to see in these MCU movies the most? Like, who's your go-to character?
Robert Downey Jr. I so enjoy him, and again, he did set this whole thing off. And you know, we'd had Marvel movies that kind of missed the mark for one reason or the other, and then this was the beginning of, you know, Marvel Studios. MCU, and I think he captured the character of Tony perfectly, and I think, you know, some of that probably comes from his own real life experiences with substance abuse and things like that, but I just thought it was like Tony just like walked out of the page, and I was like, this is perfect. And even like my favorite scene I think in all of these top 3. Because I don't like within Black Panther, but anyway. But when in Homecoming, when Peter's like, you know, if you really cared, you'd be here, and that suit opens, because I backed up like, I was like, oh my gosh, that was such like a dad moment. It's like the way he walked out of that suit, like, I am here. I was like, holy crap. And I was like, that just like rocked me to my core. So I really, really, really do enjoy Tony. But then kind of superstar in my mind is Okoye. Like, kind of Black Panther hit with a hammer, and the women in that movie were phenomenal. And I mean, I love Denai Guerra. She plays Michonne on Walking Dead, and one of the things I really respect about her is like she learns those weapons. So she's trained with a katana, and she trained with that bow staff, because in that fight scene when they panel up and you see her in the dress and she's fighting, I was like, she really has that nerve. Like, that is not a stunt double, that is her. Like, yeah, she's just phenomenal. I might have a crush on her. But yeah, so I just really love, you know, I love her character. I love like her strength, and, you know, just the love of her country. And, you know, when Killmonger sat on the throne, she served him. But the second she saw T'Challa, it was like, you know, the challenge is still on. We serve the king, and you haven't defeated him yet. And so, like, there's no question. And even when she stands up to what is W'Kabi? Thank you. Yeah, and he like kneels. I was like that, and you know, I'm sure there are a number of reasons that he kneeled, just even out of respect for her. But in my mind, part of the reason that he kneels is he knows he can't beat her in a fight. So that's like that's kind of where I go. So I just really, really love her character, everything about it.
I love all of the Revengers. My absolute favorite. They just all work so well together, and Ragnarok's probably my favorite movie too. And just like the way that Taika Waititi handles like Thor and Loki's sibling relationship. Like, Loki goes from like this like tragic Shakespearean-esque character to just this shitty little brother, and I love it so much. Like, he just breathes such new life into these characters after like The Dark World, which was just kind of there as a movie. Like, it wasn't fun. And I mean, I remember back when we got like the first preview for like we got like the title preview for Ragnarok, and we got that preview in Age of Ultron.
Oh yeah.
And like it was like all this dark, like scary stuff, and then Taika Waititi was like, "No, we're doing sci-fi, we're doing rainbow, we're gonna have a lot of fun." And I just, I love it. It's so great.
So I like the core trio. The core trio. We like Iron Man, Cap, and Thor. I mean, those ones. I feel like they were made.
Way to leave Hulk out, man.
Yeah, I mean, he's not the core. I feel like we could set him aside. I mean, as a Revenger, fine, whatever. But he had a slow start as well. But as far as like the new characters that have shown up, I really dig what they did with Doctor Strange. His origin movie was kind of like a slow build for him. He didn't really have a lot of his powers. He didn't have a lot of his humor, but they really used him well in that brief snippet of Ragnarok, and he killed it in Infinity War.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for what they can do with him in the future after the unsnapping. We'll see what they do with that.
I think really that's the title of Avengers.
Oh my god! Please let that be the title.
I think what we're gonna do. I really want to see. I would have loved to have seen him, Scarlet Witch, and Loki in a movie together. That would have been fantastic. I'll settle for him and Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, I guess we're gonna have to. Well, who knows? They bring Loki back every now and then. So we've already touched on some of our favorite and least favorite with Thor, Dark World movies. Let's talk about our favorite movies. I think mine's still. Wow, I think Winter Soldier is probably the best Marvel movie. A lot of Winter Soldier fans out there. It's just a movie that works on so many different levels as a superhero movie and as not a superhero movie. Our buddy Gary describes it well as saying who really directed that movie, because the Russo brothers did not do the same thing in Civil War and even in Infinity War, which I like both those movies, but they're just not as good as Winter Soldier. But I think my favorite movie is still the original Iron Man. It's what kicks everything off, and it's just I don't know. I rewatched it recently, doing these panels, and it still just holds up 10 years later. It's an amazing movie.
Yeah, I would say the Iron Man, number one, because again, it is the thing that kind of sets the tone and kicks everything off. But yeah, like for me, Black Panther was just something on an emotional level. I literally, and I'm not embellishing here, cried the entire time. The first time I watched it, I was in tears the entire time. I was just overwhelmed by everything. I thought it was Ryan Coogler, I think, is a genius. He is like 3 for 3, and, as far as like his major releases. And I just think he just gave life to these characters and just imagined this world and brought Wakanda to life. Like, what does it mean to mix the traditional with the modern, and just all the nuances, like Shuri. I didn't expect to enjoy Shuri as much as I did, and she was ended up being one of my favorite parts of the movie. Yeah. So again, and I think for the fact that it took them so long to make Black Panther 1, and then for it to come out and it just be this beautiful thing. And again, it wasn't just people supported it because it was Black superhero. It was like, that was a good movie. Yeah. Like it was flawless. And so for me, after Iron Man, again, because it kind of sets the tone for this universe, it has to be Black Panther.
Yeah, I think for it's just kind of a mix of those two, but with Ragnarok, I think Black Panther is probably the best Marvel movie, but Ragnarok's my favorite, and then a very close third would be Winter Soldier. I loved Ragnarok, and I love that my 2 favorite Marvel movies are the ones that have come out in the last 6 months, and that makes me really excited for where the franchise is going to be going. But Ragnarok was just it's so much fun. It's extremely funny and colorful. I'm an artist, and the whole Zack Snyder DC movie. I hate it. Why would I do that when I could just go watch Supernatural? But Ragnarok's just and Black Panther too is just such a colorful and vibrant movie, full of these really interesting female characters, and it's just so great. And Ragnarok also really handles the funniness with these stories of how do you know who you are, how do you become who you are, and also how do you deal with inheriting this tainted sort of legacy from your parents, how do you become a king in the face of that. And also I'm a really big mythology nerd, and the whole parallels between Thor losing his eye and gaining knowledge Odin did in the myths was a really cool thing for me. And it's also why I'm kind of mad that he got another eye.
It is a different color though, so we got that.
That is true. It's a nice little Bowie thing going on there. It's true.
I think so. My favorite and what I think the best one is, I've got the same problem. Winter Soldier, I think, is probably the best. They did such a good job with it. It's a movie that kind of, you feel like it can exist outside the Marvel universe.
Exactly.
And still be fantastic. Black Panther is a cultural phenomenon. They did so many great things with those characters. They really brought Wakanda to life. But my favorite, I think, is Guardians of the Galaxy, the first volume. I must have gone and seen that in theaters 5 times across multiple states. Because I think we might have been on. No, we weren't on our honeymoon, right? We might have been on our honeymoon watching Guardians of the Galaxy. This is where I want to be. And so I think Guardians is top 3 for me. Yeah. Probably the top 1.
Guardians is a fun movie. That's why I like Thor Ragnarok, because it's in that same realm of comedy, and it's those when they can be funny like that, it's something different. Guardians was different, Thor Ragnarok was different, Black Panther different. All these movies that I think that everyone has as their favorite movies, especially the more recent ones, is because they're so different than what the MCU has given us in the early days.
Yeah, they talk about superhero fatigue and everything like that, and I don't think that we've experienced that with the MCU yet, because with Ant-Man and even a little bit Infinity War. We've had a heist movie, we had the spy thriller with Winter Soldier, we had kind of like a Star Wars villain for the Guardians films, things like that. We keep seeing new stuff from them.
Yeah.
So, I feel like we're going to keep seeing that as things go, and we're going to visit the 90s with Captain Marvel, stuff like that. So,
well, so, and before we turn it over to you guys, if you guys have any questions that you want to ask any of these knowledgeable people up here, not myself, obviously, but where do you want to see the MCU go? We've been here for 10 years, and we've seen a lot of things. Can they do anything different? I think the answer is yes. But what do you want to see them do, especially now that we have the Fox merger going on, that potentially?
I need time for that.
Okay, so my thing that I would love to do, I don't think they need to bring in the X-Men with the Avengers. I feel like it would just be too much. Like, Infinity War is already like such a big movie with so many characters, but like, you know, if I could pick, I'd love to see like Guillermo del Toro adapt. I can't remember what it's called, but Mike Mignola did this comic back in like the 80s or 90s that was like Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom. And like Doctor Doom like becomes the Sorcerer Supreme, and like he has Doctor Strange go help him like save his mother's soul from hell, and it's just like a thing.
Her name is Martha, so help me.
But it's just like, it's wild and it's so different, and it delves more into like that mysticism and stuff, which I feel like the early MCU especially shied away from, and they're coming back to that a little bit more with like the Doctor Strange and stuff. And I'd be really interested in seeing something like that.
I talked about what I'd like to see at the panel that we did in Greater Oaks. I really want to see, if they do introduce the X-Men and the Fox properties and things like that, kind of like a reverse House of M, where Scarlet Witch is doing something to somehow bring the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, into this universe. But I feel like if you are going to play with a huge, you know, with all of the Marvel franchise, with the exception of maybe, you know, Namor and the Sony properties, that's a cool way to get them involved. Yeah, totally. I mean, unless you're doing something where whoever, Thor, Hulk, whoever has the gauntlet and does the reverse snap, they snap too hard and get all those characters in.
Make the problem even worse.
Right?
It's also, that's why it's like really weird that they just went ahead and did Civil War, because there's like 15 people in the whole world who have superpowers.
Yeah.
Well, like,
we'll see Civil War 2. Did anyone see the picture of Spidey and Star-Lord talking, and it's the comment from Infinity War where he's saying, "Is Kevin Bacon still, you know?" And he's like, "It never was." Civil War 2.
So I think now, I think it's because of the merger, the New Mutants movie is getting pushed back, which I was like really excited about. So I know they'll never do it, but in my mind, this is what I'd like to happen, because I am very intrigued by the character of Illyana, which is Colossus's little sister, and magic. You know, she is kind of demon spawn-esque. But I would love if they told a story about how she becomes magic. And specifically because it's also a Storm story, and I'm still pissed that not that I didn't want Halle Berry to play Storm when this happened, but now that we're kind of going into new territory, I would love to see Storm get recast as someone who I think can really carry the role, and for them to do like a Storm-focused movie, because with her, there's a lot there, and just a lot that does not get touched in the three, four, whatever, however many movies she's in, and we don't really get to see who she is. So I think, if you don't know the story, it's based on a comic. It's called Storm and Illyana Magic, and it's like an alternate reality where there's two realities existing. In one reality, the X-Men were killed, and Illyana was pulled into limbo, which is like the underworld. And then there's the X-Men that weren't killed that are trying to get her back. So it's really, really cool, and basically. Well, I won't give it away in case you read it, but it's just like a really, really cool comic, and I think would be, and it's still kind of like horror-ish, because you're in this hell dimension, and in the first New Mutants movie is supposed to be more horror, which is based on I think the Demon Bear, which was one of their first arcs, if not their first arc, as characters, and so that could kind of stick with like that kind of scary theme for those movies, and also bringing Storm in and telling like this really kind of cool and complicated story. So that's very deep. They'll never do it, but in my mind, I would like to see it.
I personally want to go and shine some light on a character who is like left way behind, and that's Hawkeye.
Yeah,
like, I really think
that's the other thing, a Hawkeye and Hawkeye movie.
And I actually want to go a step further and say, give me a Hawkeye Netflix series. And I haven't read the story myself, but our buddy told us about it, and that Matt Fraction story just sounds amazing, where he's basically, he is the landlord of this apartment complex, and there's a pizza dog, and there's the story of him being a superhero and also like having a day job running an apartment complex just sounds so intriguing to me as a Netflix series. And it's a character that I think, I don't know if you can make it work in a 2.5 hour movie, but I think if you give that character 10 to 13 hours in an hour-long series, or even a half-hour comedy or something like that on Netflix, I think it would work really, really well. That's who I want. I want more Hawkeye. So we have about 15 minutes left before they're probably going to kick us out. So Mike is going to be our mic person for anyone that wants to ask any questions about the MCU. If you want to, we have a comic book store owner here, a comic book artist here, an author here, and a podcaster. So ask away.
I can put it right here.
Yeah, I don't know if it will stretch all the way out there. So feel free to walk on up, ask your question. And if you're asking a question, Mike's going to give you some random swag that we have.
Okay. This is a two-part question. Can everyone hear me here?
Yeah.
Okay. Two-part. Deadpool, MCU or Fox? And second part, can we see Deadpool in MCU? Could we see that happen?
I think that, and they've kind of answered this question if the merger goes through, where they'll kind of have this R-rated universe of the MCU that Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds will probably be part of. And I think that's where he should go. And I think what they're even doing now with the character, we've seen all this marketing where he's basically putting himself or referencing the MCU, is exactly what they should do with this character. He'll be brought into the MCU field, but he'll totally make references to Thanos and Captain America, and he'll make references to all these characters. I don't think you'll ever see him in an MCU film proper, and I don't think you'll see an MCU character in a Deadpool movie, unless they reboot that franchise.
Thank you.
Hi there. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I was just wondering, do you think they'll do a female-centric movie with all, the last few movies between the women of Black Panther, you even had Valkyrie, Hela, they were all strong female characters. So do you think maybe they'll do Captain Marvel's coming out too, so maybe like a movie that's female-centered, maybe even directed by a woman? I'm gonna let
the proper people answer this question.
I actually don't know. I try to stay away from what's going on behind the scenes so that I can have virgin eyes, if you will, when I watch movies. I don't want to know. I don't watch, literally when I would go to the movies and the Black Panther, I would be like this. Because it's I don't want to see anything. I just want to experience it. So I haven't read anything that would lead me to believe that, but I think the potential's there. The World of Wakanda was a book that focused on the Dora Milaje. It only had a 6-issue run, but people were really mad to see it go. And then I think on the strength of the movie, I think that potential is there. They're here to make money, and so I feel like if they see an opportunity, we can kind of bank on this, they'll do it. Yeah. So I hope so. I think it would do well, but I personally haven't read anything where I'm that's definitely the direction they're going. But I think they'd be wise to do it.
Yeah, I think like I'd love to see something that happens between Infinity War 1 and 2, like how the women of Wakanda are dealing without
a
their
king. Yeah.
Like Shuri stepping up and stuff like that would be really interesting to watch, but I feel like they're kind of behind on stuff. I mean, people have been asking for like a Black Widow movie since like 2011, and they're just now like, oh, we'll give that to you after nobody really wants it anymore.
and to your point of Shuri, I mean, Shuri does at one time have the mantle of Black Panther. My only issue in the MCU is that she is so young. She was older when she takes it, so I don't know. It's the kind of thing that's like, oh, I don't know if I want to see her with all that weight on her shoulders, because I think we lose some of like the fun that is Shuri, and I would like to keep, that part of her character intact. But I mean, that's something I guess they could do. I doubt Nakia would take the mantle, so I don't know. I mean, Wakanda, I'm sure, is in shambles right now because of the events of Infinity War. So,
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
One of my favorite characters is the Silver Surfer. And I know with the merger, we might actually see the Silver Surfer movie. My question is like, what character would you like to see next? Like, they brought in the Black Panther. Like, what Marvel character, even Fox character, would you like to see a solo movie that we haven't seen so far?
Yeah, there's so many. I mean, I guess for me, and I guess it's going to maybe come eventually, but Gambit, I feel like hasn't. They've talked about that Gambit movie forever, and at this point, I think it just makes sense to wait to see what happens with Disney and Fox, and just bring it in under the MCU banner. But that's a character that I understand why they didn't have him around at all, really. Because of the Cyclops Wolverine, he's kind of like both characters. But I think it's time. Like in 2018, we have all these different superheroes that are really kind of all alike anyway. So Gambit's the guy I want to see.
Yeah, I mean, so again, this will probably never happen. But I really love Warpath, and so we see him for a hot second in Days of Future Past. And I remember when I saw the trailer for that, and I just saw the war paint, and I saw like two blades swinging around. I was like, oh my God. And I almost like fell out of my chair. And if you're checking out The Gifted, his brother is on that. John is on The Gifted. And John's really fun too. I feel like I'm cheating on James with John. But there's something about like, just about John. I don't know, and maybe if they wanted to do, so I don't think they'll really do that, but that'd be cool. But if they wanted to go like space, kind of spacefaring, especially since like pretty much all of the Guardians are gone except Rocket, and honestly, that is a franchise I don't know who, if anybody, would come back in the unsnapping. But they could definitely do. They could do Corsair and the Starjammers, which could be fun, and then you have like interesting characters like Hesaba. Which visually I think she's just really interesting to look at. So, and that still connects them to Scott, and I guess Havoc. The timeline I'm still kind of messed up, but it still kind of connects them to that main X-Men universe too, which could be cool.
Well, I love a Valkyrie solo movie. If only like to figure out like, well, how is she right now? What's going on? Like, what's she doing?
Text.
I'd also love I'd love to see like Clea become involved somehow, like Doctor Strange's like pal from the Dark Dimension, I think. I mean, like, everybody has like their wish list of like, if Marvel just like, gave me a comic book series to do, I'd want it to be like med student Doctor Strange learning magic from Clea and Wong. But like, yeah, I'd love to see her get involved.
One of the cool things about Homecoming is that they took one of the least threatening villains in Spidey's history, the Vulture, and made him like kind of like a badass. Like, what minor villain in like all of Spidey's like history, out of all his rogues, like Miter, Mysterio, Swarm, any of them, would you like to see like really take the screen, like someone other than one of the more main names?
I mean, this is easy. I wanted Mysterio forever.
Yes.
Bruce Campbell was supposed to play him at some point, and that's Mysterio, hands down.
Well, I mean, this is not a minor villain, but I really want a Carnage movie. Carnage has always just been, you know, Venom's always first, and Venom's fine, but there is something about Carnage that just grabs me. And again, just visually, what that symbiote looks like, I would just love to see that on screen. So that's what I'd like to see for Spider-Man.
I think I'd second Mysterio, actually. Like, the second you mentioned that, I was like, oh yeah, I'd love to see that. Like, even just, you know, back to the, like, first Spider-Man video game movie days.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much there.
If I wasn't going to play with Mysterio, I'd want to see, they're talking about making, well, I don't have a mic.
Oh, you don't have a mic anymore.
Thank you. I would hope that if we couldn't play with Mysterio, and they're talking about making Spider-Man Homecoming 2, or whatever it's going to be called, kind of a globetrotting story, I would hope that we could see Craven.
Oh, that's a good one, too.
That would be awesome.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so, basically, this is more of a general question, but towards the end of Infinity War, like, for a split second, Shuri took the plans from Vision off the table, and then Vision died like twice. But then, after this unsnapping thing, do you think that, something could happen where, like, Vision, she finishes Vision, like, the time stone goes back to redo that, his, like, forehead getting blown out? Like, what? Like, what about Vision?
What about
Vision? Because he's a curious one, too, because he technically is before the snapping. Is that what we're calling it? Snapping and unsnapping? So, you know, I feel like personally, for anything to mean anything in Infinity War, the pre-snapping deaths, Gamora, Loki, Heimdall, and Vision, they need to stay dead. Which stings because I would love to see more of Vision. We didn't get much time with him. And this is the first movie that we've seen him in that I really cared about Vision and Scarlet Witch. I wanted more time with that couple. I think he's going to come back. I don't see a world where he doesn't because they have not used him. I don't know how, but I think he comes back.
There is precedent in the comics for him to come back with his like white outfit.
Mm-hmm.
And we see in Infinity War he kind of drains of color and everything. Shuri they wouldn't have shown Shuri working on the plans.
And taking it away.
Yeah, so I think we're going to lose a bit of what Vision was. He'll come back in some shape or way where he's different. He doesn't have the same emotions or memories or something like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I'd like to ask, what do you think is kind of going to happen with Ant-Man and the Wasp being, it's going to be during the events of Infinity War? And how do you think that's going to tie into, like, Ant-Man, like, everyone dusting away? How do you think that's going to work with, like, all the Ant-Man characters?
I actually have to admit, I can't answer that because I have not seen Ant-Man. That was just one of the ones that I didn't make time for. I probably will try to see Ant-Man and Wasp.
Fun fact, I haven't seen Ant-Man either. I want to. It's
Has
sitting on
anyone
the
seen
shelf.
it?
We can talk about
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's something that Ant-Man and Wasp is probably going to deal. When is that even coming out?
See, I have a theory about that. I
had no idea it was that soon.
Yeah, it's very soon.
But then we got nothing for like half a year.
My theory is that Ant-Man and the Wasp is going to take place before Infinity War, and then the post-credits is when we're going to see the events of Infinity War play out. So that way they don't have to really worry about anything. So that's what I think they're going to do.
Yeah, that is, like, they're just doing this stuff in the middle of the world falling apart.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They're stuck in the quantum realm or something like that.
Well, that's another thing I heard is that they could be in the quantum realm and then they come out post-snapping. So that, or I think the post-credits will show maybe Ant-Man or the Wasp, one of them, or one of the side characters dusting away, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's so short.
What's up, guys?
You're Ramon.
Hey.
So I guess my question goes primarily to the comic book expert in the middle, but to everyone in general, please feel free to chime in. So I feel that Captain Marvel has the potential to be transformative in terms of what's going to happen to the MCU. It's going to be our first movie with a female lead, and she has powers that are cosmic, along with day-to-day, everyday, normal people concerns. So I'm wondering what aspects you want to see and what elements of her personality and her character do you want to see go from the page onto the screen?
Well, for me, that's like a hard question. So, so Captain Marvel as Carol Danvers, for me, because I'm a really big X-Men head, so my kind of relationship with Carol starts as Miss Marvel and basically her relationship with Mystique and Rogue. So, I mean, and in the comics we see a lot of changes. Honestly, it's funny because I kind of wish she was going to be binary, because I really like the visual of binary, but I'm not a huge Carol fan. So for me, I'm just going to watch that movie and take it as is. And I've tried, like when after Civil War in the comics, and then there's Mighty Avengers, which was Carol's book. I tried, but I just could not get into it. I don't know. So I really have no, I'm just going to go see it. I'm sorry.
Check out Kamala Khan, though. She's really cool.
Yeah, I know. I do know Kamala. Yes.
They're talking about potentially introducing her after Captain Marvel comes out.
That'd be sweet.
She's at least on the docket that they've been thinking about it. So
that'd be super cool.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
First of all, I love your hair.
Oh, thank you.
But if you guys could work on a comic book for any kind of Marvel character, MCU or not, which character would it be?
Like to create?
Yeah.
Oh man. Whew. This is a good question. I never thought about this. I think I would probably go Captain America. He's a character that I did not care for at all until Civil War, and he died. So much so that I got his shield tattoo. And Ed Brubaker's run on Cap was brilliant. It's one of my favorites, and I would definitely want to work with Cap, I think.
I think I have two. I'd love to do a Revengers book. Like, I'd love to literally just make Ragnarok into a comic, and I think that would be a really fun way to do, like, since the MCU movies are adaptations, I think it would be fun to kind of switch it and do an adaptation of an MCU movie, because, like, they're so different, and the people behind them are so different. And apart from that, I'd love to do teen X-Men in the 80s. Like, basically what I wish Apocalypse would have been.
I feel like I'm always going to obscure. So, a team that I always thought was really interesting was it was Ed Brubaker, Deadly Genesis, and so basically, this is like when we were finding out that the professor is not as great as we once thought, and so there is a team of X-Men that he puts together to save the original X-Men from Krakoa before he puts together the team that Storm, Wolverine, Nightcrawler, Sunfire, all those guys. Before that team, there was another team, and it was 4 teenagers, and basically they go on Krakoa. They're there too long. It takes them too long. The island learns their weaknesses, and it just destroys them. And that's if you were reading like the whole Vulcan stuff, like the Third Summer's brother, like all of that stuff comes out of that storyline. But I thought that was just a really interesting story. And again, these kids that just get forgotten because Xavier actually wipes them from everybody's mind, even Moira's, if I'm not mistaken, because Moira knew about the team. So we got to go back and kind of explore them and give them, you know, some light in the sun, especially because they were like Xavier's first kind of like victims of the dream, you know, where he was kind of, you know, he's kind of making kids soldiers and sacrificing them for this, you know, greater idea, which I just think is a really interesting concept, and also explores Xavier as this flawed character, which is also interesting to me.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
For like what, assuming that they'll, which I'm sure they'll be able to be making more movies post Infinity War 2. Do you think what kinds of ideas would you like explore? Like, do you think it should be back to the way it was before, or do you think it would just be a total reboot? or any other ideas you might?
I don't think it's going to be a reboot. I think they're going to continue on just in a whole new way. So I mean, like a light reboot in the sense that you're not going to see many of the original characters. But I think we're going to have our, Spider-Man. You're going to have Doctor Strange. You're going to have Sam. You're going to have all these newer, less often looked at heroes be the face of the MCU for the next 10 years. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
So in Captain Marvel, it was confirmed that Phil Coulson would be returning again, and we know from the show, I love the show, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that he survived. So, given that at the end of Infinity War, Nick Fury and I think it was Maria Hill are gone, do you think it's possible that we'll ever see Phil Coulson again in any of these future movies?
I don't think in the future movies. I think in Captain Marvel, since it takes place in the 90s, I think it makes sense. But they've been very clear that even though he's alive in the show, he's kind of not part of the MCU anymore.
It's getting tougher and tougher for them to pretend. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so I kind of have two questions because you just brought up Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. One, would you like to see Daisy Johnson go into the MCU? And two, talking about who could wield the Infinity Gauntlet, in one of the comics, I don't remember what it's called, it's Iron Man, and he actually wields it. Would you like to see that, possibly?
I'm going to keep it simple and I'll let them go off. Yes and yes.
As for the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. comment, I cannot comment on that because I am not watching it. I'm sorry. It's like I don't have as much time as I like, and I will say the one thing I did let myself fall into wholly and fully is The Gifted, and I do not regret that. But I've heard really good things about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so I'm hoping to make time to binge it at some point. But yeah, I think that would be cool. And again, as I said, I do think Tony, again, I think Tony is the key to all of this, and maybe that could be why. And I do think it will mean his ending. So I think that would make sense because he is still immortal, wielding the gauntlet. And even if he's able to do it, the fact that he would not get up from that makes sense. So I actually would really like to see that. I think that would, again, and also coming full circle because he's the one that gets this all started. Yeah.
It would also it would help with that thing of clearing those main three out for the next people to sort of take up those mantles.
Poor Hulk, man. Poor Hulk.
He doesn't have his own movie yet.
It's he got his distribution rights back. We start talking about him.
At least he hasn't just been totally written out. The movie's like Hawkeye.
Leave Hawkeye alone.
Thank you.
All right, we'll make this the last question, because I think we have to get out of here soon.
All right, so in the comics, you see a lot of people taking up the mantles of other heroes, like Sam Wilson becoming Captain America, Kamala Khan becoming Ms. Marvel, and Riri Williams becoming the new kind of Iron Man figure. Which one of those, or all of those adaptations, would you like to see in the MCU?
I personally want to see, and this leads right into the Civil War storyline in the comics. I want to see Winter Soldier. I want to see Sebastian Stan take the Cap mantle first. I would love to see that progress to Sam, like it did in the comics. But I fully expect Cap to die in the next movie. It's going to be sad, but it needs to happen. And Bucky's going to take the shield, I think. And that's what we'll see Captain America 4 will really be the Winter Soldier storyline kind of deal with him as Cap.
Well, for me, I'd like to see the girls. I mean, I love Bucky, but it's again, for me, that's kind of more of the same, more of the status quo what we've been seeing. So I would love to see Kamala Khan. I would love to see Riri Williams. So that's two young girls of color leading a film. I mean, which we haven't seen. Again, we do get Black Panther. But you didn't go see that movie for the women. You walked away from the movie talking about the women, but you didn't go for the women. It was still a male lead. So it would be awesome to see not only a POC lead, but also simultaneously a woman lead, because that we haven't gotten. The only movie I can really think about that is Columbiana. I mean, now that's not MCU, but that's when I think about are there any Black women and Proud Mary? But that's it. So for me, I would just love to see that. That'd be awesome.
I mean, we've talked at length about sort of how Hawkeye has become kind of a non-entity in the MCU, but I'd love to see him become more of a thing, if only, like, and also, I'd kind of love to get him recast, too, if they ever did that, like, Hawkeye, like, Netflix series.
Yeah,
like,
that'd be awesome.
Someone who's a little bit more of a Matt Fraction Hawkeye type, like, and then I'd love to see, what's her face? Kate take up the Hawkeye mantle. And I love also how they both kind of fight over it. He's like, I want my bow back. Like, I love that sort of dynamic when the original person still hasn't really left and they're both just kind of there.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, guys, we are officially getting kicked out here. Thank you all. Thank you to my panelists here. And make sure you check us out on awesomepodcast.com. Amalgam Comics and Coffee House on Frankfurt Ave. What's your website?
KateSheridanArt.com.
And tellus.com. Thanks, guys. We've been awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Court Arts Podcast Network. To listen to more Court Arts shows, visit courtamparts.com.